We have Iris today, who is a co-founder and CEO of Umba Daima, the creative agency that curates creative NFT projects. Also, she's an engineering manager at Vox Media. And so I'm just going to tell briefly, and we're discussing today the NFTs, of course, as a tool for disadvantaged communities in order to close the wealth gap. So that's very exciting. And please, Iris, very exciting.
Yeah, so I'm trying to figure out how to share my presentation. I'm not seeing the link to send my, oh, there we go. Okay, perfect. Thank you. I hope everybody's doing well today. I promise I'm gonna get this started any second now.
Take your time. Real good. Real good.
Okay.
Where are you located?
I'm in so I live in Atlanta, but right now I'm in Miami, staying at my parents' house for the winter.
That sounds like a great plan.
Yeah, this is where they're from, and this is where I grew up. So me and my partner, my boyfriend, came down here to stay for about 6 weeks.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Okay. Should be able to see my screen now. Perfect. All right. Perfect. All right. So again, my name is Iris. I'm gonna actually save my intro for later on in the call because I want to give the presentation first, and then I'm gonna tie in at the end why this subject is so important to me. And there's some things that I'm not going to go into in full detail, so I put some links at the end of the presentation for anyone that would like a reference. So to start, Umba Daima is an NFT studio that is creating equity through art and community. And for us, equity means allowing people to have equal opportunity and reducing the disparities that we see between people, right? There's some people that have a lot, and there's a lot of people that have a little. There's communities that are communities of people that are disadvantaged when it comes to medicine, when it comes to health, when it comes to food, safety, right? And that disparity is not natural. It's not because there's some innate thing that's wrong with these people. It's a cultural, societal problem that we can solve with cultural and social solutions. And so we believe that NFTs present a really powerful, unique, new, revolutionary opportunity or tool that we can use to facilitate equity. And so I'm going to walk through how we see that at Umba Daima. So, we're specifically looking to make amazing art that tells powerful stories, right? Storytelling makes the world go round. We're looking to empower communities. We're looking to uplift minorities, and we're looking to destroy the wealth gap. So why NFTs? First is ownership. Ownership allows IP creators to create unique digital assets, right? So think of like a stock or a share in a company. The average person is not able to create some sort of stock or share that they can put out to the world for people to invest in and have that thing that they own grow in value, right? Usually that looks like land, that looks like businesses, and a lot of people don't have the ability to own land or to create businesses at scale. And so NFTs allow a regular person who may have limited means or limited access to create something that they own and sell it and see it accumulate in value over time. The second thing is that NFTs allow for social impact, right? And I'm going to break that down a little bit more later on, but it allows for social impact because it allows communities to also create assets, right? So you have the individual person who can create their art and sell it as NFT. You also have a community of people, let's say 50, 100, 2,000, let's say a small city of 500,000 people, right? Or 150,000 people they can collectively create assets as well in collaboration with artists and developers, and trade those assets amongst themselves. This is something that before, small communities like this really couldn't do unless they were super sophisticated or had a lot of resources. So now you're talking about being able to allow smaller or disadvantaged communities that have less money, less capital, less wealth. Now you're talking about a situation where they could potentially create an NFT or NFT asset without having to spend the kind of capital and money and investment that would have typically been required to pull off something like that. When a community is able to create an asset and trade it, and that asset grows in value over time, that means the people in that community are gonna accumulate wealth. And as they accumulate wealth, more people are going to be attracted to that community. More people are going to want to stay in that community. More people are going to want to give to that community and engage in that community. And so it allows the community to get stronger, to get healthier, and to be able to really invest in itself. So I'm looking at this as a community of 150 to 200,000 people to literally use NFTs to make themselves a stronger, better, healthier, more equitable community. And then there's the fun. You know, with NFTs, even though there's many different types of uses, you have the art use, the art case, which is what most people are familiar with, right? An artist or a musician creates a video, piece of video art, or a digital piece of art, and they put it on the blockchain as an NFT and they sell it. But they can also do that. They can do that on a small scale. They can also do that on a large scale. And they can do that in collaboration with communities. And at the end of the day, creating art is fun, right? Most people like to dance, like to sing, like to perform, like to draw, like to paint, even if they're bad at it. They still like to do it. There's something really fulfilling about being creative. And so I think NFTs are an opportunity for more and more people to actually experience and do creativity without having the barriers that there oftentimes is to being creative. So NFTs empower creators who can now authenticate their intellectual property on the blockchain, right? And they can sell it to the highest bidder. So again, a musician, a painter, an animator can create their NFT by taking their intellectual property and minting it on the blockchain to create an NFT, and they can sell it to the highest bidder, which is something that artists outside of, let's say, filmmakers and musicians could not do before, right? If you make songs, you can license your song, right? And if you're a filmmaker, you can create a film and you can sell it. And if you're a painter or a sculptor, you can sell it. But for most other types of art, if you're a dancer, if you are an animator, right? If you make digital art, it's almost impossible for you to actually sell your art just for the sake of it being art. And so in most cases, those kinds of creators actually have to do commission work, where they're creating art for someone else. They can't.
Yeah, it's brutal.
Right.
Before the metaverse, it was brutal. Now it's kind of like that's whole new world that is wonderful.
Yeah, you can now, have your own personal creative expression that's not based on anybody else, not based on a client, not based on some expectations. It's just what you want to sell, want to create, and you can sell it and have that be worth something. And then on top of that, there's the fact that you also get royalties, right? Perpetual royalties off of every sale, which is written into the contract. Now, the reason why this is particularly important for Black and Brown creators is, I'll speak to the United States because that's where I'm the most familiar, is because historically Black people in the United States and in the Western Hemisphere have been some of the primary creators of intellectual property, especially when we're talking about creativity. Okay, when we're talking about fashion, when we're talking about music, um, we are the largest creators of IP, and oftentimes because historically we haven't had the power, right? Things are changing, but if you're talking about the 1800s, the 1900s, early 1900s, 1950s, those musicians and those artists and those painters and those creators were getting all of their IP stolen by the people in the dominant class, and they had no power to actually fight back, right? So there's all these examples of, what has happened throughout history. You have, for example, you know, you have sneaker culture, which is something that was developed by by Black Americans in the United States. Now sneaker culture is a huge thing, and all of these different brands are monetizing off of sneaker culture. But the obsession with sneakers and the desire to be really fashionable around sneakers was something that was born in Black communities, right? But the average Black person has no sort of ownership or power or leverage in that industry, in the shoe industry, even though the shoe industry is generating billions, tens of billions of dollars for predominantly white people, predominantly white men, right? So you're talking about a community that created the culture, and the outside community is the one monetizing it. If you look at fashion, a lot of the fashion trends that we see in high fashion, couture fashion, is actually taken from Black fashion designers. There's a lot of different examples. My favorite one is called Logomania, but it's basically when there's a shirt or a piece of clothing where the logo is repeated in a pattern all over the clothes. Okay, and this is something that was created by a Black designer in the 80s and 90s, and was considered corny and cheesy and fake. Sorry, not fake. Extra. And then white fashion designers actually took it and turned it into a high fashion trend. If you look at Pablo Picasso, who's one of the most famous painters in history, he stole a lot of his style from African art, and it was something that was actually very, very explicit. Sometimes he would copy pieces, um, almost almost literally. If you look at hoop earrings, right, hoop earrings in the United States was considered quote unquote ghetto, low class for poor people, and now you see a lot of high fashion models, and sorry, you see a lot of high fashion shows where the models are wearing hoop earrings,
It's
and so
ridiculous.
yeah, it's very interesting. I have a few more examples. So if you look at music is a great example. So all through the 20s, all through the 70s and 80s, Black Americans were creating and innovating in the music industry, and they were getting their music stolen from all of the top artists. So Elvis Presley, the Rolling Stones, the Beatles, the Beach Boys, they all stole a lot of their music from Black artists, and sometimes they stole a whole song. And if you go and you look this up, you can actually find the songs and you can listen to them. Then you have Jack Daniels. That's the famous Jack Daniels whiskey brand. It actually was released. A news story came out a few years ago covering the story of the brand and the fact that Jack Daniels actually learned the recipe from his slaves, and he took the recipe and turned it into his multi-billion-dollar empire that now his family has inherited. And then the last example is a show called Friends, which I'm sure everyone is very familiar with. Friends was one of, I think, the most popular show on television at one point. And they took the concept from a Black TV show called Living Single that had come out exactly 1 year before. It was the exact same concept. It was six friends living in New York City in an apartment together. It was literally the exact same storyline on the exact same network, and they essentially sabotaged the show and then replaced it with Friends. And so, these are just some examples of how creators, right? If you don't have power, if you don't have access, if you don't have resources, it's very easy for you to have your intellectual property stolen, okay? And there's nothing that you can do about that. And then the wealth that's generated, the wealth that you lose from not being able to retain your intellectual property actually has an impact on the community. While one community is gaining wealth and passing that wealth on to other generations and strengthening their community, the other community has to do without. And it's not just a matter of like not having more, it's about the fact that you did something that you didn't get actually acknowledged or properly compensated for, right? So in the United States, we have a massive wealth disparity between Black and white families. There's also a disparity between Latino families as well. But this is the widest disparity, so I'm going to focus on this. You can see here that the median wealth in Black families in 2019 was $24,000, and in white families, it was $189,000. Okay. So that means that the average Black family has 12.7% the wealth of a white family. In 2019, that same year, if we're looking at the average wealth, right? So the median gives you an idea of like the people who are in the middle. 50% of people have higher than that number of wealth. 50% of people have below. Now, if we look at the average wealth of a Black family is 142,000 versus the average wealth of a white family that's 838,000, almost $1 million. Okay. And so the examples that I just gave you are just one very small subsection or explanation of why these numbers exist. Okay. Mm-hmm. You have one group that's able to have of course their successes, but they're able to leech and steal success from the other group, which allows for the gap between them to widen and widen and widen. Now, society is changing, and we have tools and technologies that make it so that even though someone may try to do that, there are these technologies that disadvantaged communities can now leverage to protect themselves, to empower themselves, and to do the things that they couldn't do previously. Okay, so mm-hmm. NFTs empower artists, but they also power underprivileged communities, and they simplify the ability for these disadvantaged communities to create and trade their value. So I also wanted to touch on really quickly why this is important to me. Because I am a former community organizer, and usually community organizers, these are the people that operate usually on like a national or local level, organizing people around some sort of social issue or social problem to try and resolve that problem. And community organizers are underpaid, they're undervalued, they're usually stuck in these nonprofit institutions that are also underfunded and don't have the resources to do what they need to do. And that was me a few years ago. And I decided, screw it, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going to learn how to build technology. So I left my my organization where I was doing activism work in South Florida, and I went to San Francisco. I did a coding boot camp, and I became a software engineer. And after that, I became an engineering manager. And so my journey into tech has led me exactly to this point where now I understand how technology can be used to solve social problems. And so I know we're running out of time. I had a few more examples that I was going to run through, like the Bored Ape Yacht Club and Boss Beauties, that are two examples of NFT projects that have allowed for a community of people to monetize and leverage that value. Bored Ape Yacht Club, I'm not really sure what they're doing that's positive for society, but Boss Beauties is an example of a project where the proceeds are being used to support women's education and career development. They've launched a mentorship program, and they've also launched a private book club. And so this is just the beginning of what can be done to actually use NFTs to create wealth and to create value that can be funneled back into a community. So I just want to close with, as you go through creating and generating wealth through NFTs, which I'm sure all of you on the stage will do at some point or another, whether you're an artist or a collector or just someone who's observing. I guarantee at some point you will buy or sell an NFT. That's the future. That's where we're headed. And I just hope that, you know, as you go along that journey, that you also think to yourself, what value are you truly creating? And is that value something that makes the world a better place?
Mm-hmm. So, guys, I just wanted to remind you that you can all raise your hand as question. I will invite you to the stage. And I actually have a question myself while everyone is thinking. So, this wealth gap. So, I mean, without NFTs, it would have taken, I don't know, ages, decades. What do you think? How much the NFTs will speed up this process of closing this wealth gap? Like, what are your ideas, estimations? Like, you know.
Yeah, I think that it's hard to say because it could go both ways. It's possible that it could enhance the wealth gap if we don't make sure that these communities are educated and onboarded about NFTs. Then you'll have a situation where only already privileged communities are truly able to leverage it for wealth, and these other communities are not. So I think it's really up to us to make that decision, to make that change. And I think that if we can educate and onboard communities in mass, I think that we could close that gap in the next 40 or 50 years, even though the estimates are the trajectory right now is saying that the gap is actually going to widen between now and 2050. By 2050, the average Black household wealth is predicted to be zero. It's been going down every single year. And so I think that we could reverse it in that same time period, but it would require very, very intentional work.
Absolutely. I can't agree with you more. But, and another question actually, that in regards to the communities, right? So I was listening this morning actually, or yesterday, Gary Vee talking about communities and how many actually fake stuff is starting to exist, you know. Mm-hmm. Everybody's there for community, but there's a lot of people who are not really there for community.
Right.
So what is your angle to that?
Yeah, I think, you know, it's interesting because it's really easy to build a fake community nowadays and drop an NFT and make a bunch of money. And, you know, there's no way to stop those people from doing that. I think ultimately for the people who have a bigger vision than just making money, right? The people who believe in the technology and believe in and truly want to create the world, make the world a better place. I think that the best thing that they can do is find communities that already exist and find community organizers that have been doing the work of organizing those communities. They're there, they're out there, they're everywhere. And I think those are the perfect people to collaborate with.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you. I'm just also myself in the research. I've sold a few things, and I'm also looking into stuff, and it's just mind blowing, the whole Twitter game and, you know, Discord everywhere. So I'm just like, it's fascinating to see the changes, the growth, the, you know, everything that is happening there. Guys, anyone has any questions? I kind of took over. Yes, we'll have somebody. We'll have Sean here. There we go. Sean, you are live. You just muted fully, and yeah, there we go. Hi.
Hi, Iris.
Hi.
We bounced a few messages on WhatsApp, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
Yes, yeah. I didn't want you to feel like I abandoned you, so I thought I'll just jump up and say hi. Yeah.
That's okay.
Listen, very interesting presentation, and its topic something that very kind of close to my heart as well. I think yes, in America it's very clear that some of the largest school districts serving Black community, I think the whole educational system there is a bit bizarre, isn't it? I think there's a lack of the financial education for some reason. Somebody did like a stats on it.
Yeah.
When I started in Western Illinois, I mean, I'm a son of academics, so I like looking in these different things. So we had people like that were there from Chicago, etc., and then you had people from more the suburban areas, and you can clearly see a huge difference.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you think this is something that needs to be addressed by maybe people like yourself that would do, like find some kind of a funding to educate the young generation on how they should be, engaging into these cryptocurrencies, NFTs?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that educating young people, I think that schools are really a huge part of closing the wealth gap. Education is a huge part of closing the wealth gap, and it has to start at a young age. Studies show that that typically once a child reaches middle school, their education that they had before they hit middle school is more important than afterwards, right? And afterwards is still important, but those early years are the most crucial. And so we can really change a lot by teaching kids at every step of the way financial education, as well as understanding investments, understanding the stock market, understanding insurance, budgeting, taxes. I think we can also contribute a lot by teaching them skill sets that are actually valuable, teaching them how to code. The average young Black child doesn't have access to a computer, or doesn't have access to someone who knows how to code to the point that they would even know what a computer language is. I, for example, didn't know what a computer language was until I was about 23 years old. Um, and so I think that there's a lot that can be done around education of the youth. I don't know if that's necessarily my path personally, but there are people out there doing that work, and I hope that there will be more.
I think, from my perspective, it all comes down to disparities in education, and wealth. Like you pointed that out, it's clear there's a huge gap, which also impacting the income. So I think somebody within the community should kind of take charge of it, not rely on the on a sort of government educational system, but actually step in and educate of people on how to, increase your wealth through investing in, I don't know, crypto and NFTs. But you've got another dilemma. There is another side to that coin, because I understand your government now wants to introduce some kind of a regulations that will, push a lot of, crypto experts to run away offshore somewhere. Is that correct? Yeah.
There's a lot of contention around the crypto regulation. Yeah, that's correct. And so I think that there needs to be change on multiple levels. I think it's up to individuals and people from these communities to do what they can to give back and to educate. And we do in our way. We're not necessarily in schools, but we onboard people into NFTs online. We onboard and educate about crypto. We hold 4 to 5 events on a weekly basis, educating and teaching people about crypto. We've helped multiple artists become 6-figure earners in the NFT space. Some of
And
them.
who does the education? Is it like investors? Is it somebody who's in the industry? Are
It's a
those the guys
mixture.
with the same background?
It's a
Because I think that's
mixture.
very
So
important, huh?
it's a mixture. So we invite, some people are invited to speak. So like we'll invite lawyers, we'll invite accountants and
Mm-hmm.
and tax advisors and so forth to come and speak on panels. Sometimes it's just spaces where people are just talking about their experiences in the NFT space, or their experiences with crypto. So it generally ranges. But yeah, we don't have like a formal course, which is something that we're working on. We're getting ready to produce an actual video course, and we have a podcast as well. But we haven't stepped into the realm of going into actual schools and talking to children.
But yeah, I really like how you presented it, and the topic is obviously very relevant to this festival. The one thing that I noticed, you're not a member of our NFT club for some reasons, and there's a very little information about you in your profile. What you could do if you tap on my avatar,
Okay.
yeah, you can see below that I'm a member of the NFT club. I'm actually the founder of the NFT club. So if you could kindly join it, and when you have spare time and you fill up your profile, yeah, I'd love for you to become a member and be aware of what we're doing. And this kind of a topics, I think we definitely need to address. Of course, another topic, the statistics show that, for example, the female ratio in the NFT community is actually like 70%. So, these kind of topics, I think, is always very exciting, and education is I'm all up for it. So thank you. Sorry, Abby.
Thank you. We have somebody else here to ask some questions. Hi. Sorry to keep you waiting, but your microphone is open, so you can speak.
Yes.
Hi.
Okay. Hey, both of you, Anastasia and Iris. Good
Hi.
morning from India. So,
Hi.
I have a question. I'm talking to you from India. So, I'm basically an NFT artist. So, I'm looking for some good big projects as well. A while back, I spoke to some people. They said that it's going to work out. I'm trying to do some virtual reality programs on the metaverse. Now, I'd like to know what, according to your perspective, would be good as a utility for me to do here in India from your perspective.
A utility to tie to an NFT.
Something that would be the need of the art from your perspective towards India.
Yeah. So it's hard to give, I think, a very informed answer because I don't know. Uh, 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 I can assume what some of India's problems are, but I don't know
Yeah.
from a person, from a expertise level. Um, I think that I think that if you could find an initiative or a pro uh, a community or a group of people that need support, whatever that community is, whether it's people in a certain neighborhood, whether it's people in a certain profession, whether it's children, right? If you can find people from that community, or find that community that you feel moved by and you want to help, and then create some sort of utility that benefits the people who come from that community that have become successful. Does that make sense? So, for example, if you could create access to an uh, online programming or access to certain events in India, right? Maybe exclusive events that people can only go to if they have your NFT. And then you say, and so you're adding that value to those people. They're getting something from it that's going to make them want to buy the NFT, and then a percentage of the NFTs actually, a percentage of the sales can be funneled into the community that they come from, and then it's automatic, right? You don't have to, they don't have to make a donation or manually send money. They just know that by participating in this project and the way the smart contract is set up, you have things automatically set up so that every single time someone trades or exchanges this one of these NFTs, a percentage is automatically funneled to the community that you're advocating for.
Right. So, I wanted to actually sell the NFTs globally because I do not think at this moment a lot of I don't think
You're
at this moment.
So you're breaking up.
you're breaking up. We couldn't hear you.
Yeah. So I don't think like a lot of people know about NFT at the moment over here. So what I'm thinking is like to sell the NFTs globally, and with this money, what should I do with this money that I will make? I can make like 10,000 or 20,000 or 100,000 NFTs. It's no
Mhm.
problem for me. I know how to do it. So
Yeah.
what how do I use this money for the growth of India from your perspective?
Yes. Um, I mean, I think that I are you asking me for a more detailed response than the one I just gave?
Something like, yes, something like you said about schools, something like clean water and things like
Yes.
that. What do you think would be the most appropriate from your perspective, viewing from the United States? What do you think is the need of the hour for India? Because I'm here, I'm seeing some things, but I like to know perspective as well, so that,
Yeah.
yes.
I'm sure Sean has some thoughts on this. You know, I think that when it comes to quote, we call them developing countries, countries that have higher levels of poverty. My family's Jamaican. Our countries like that as well. I
Very
think a lot.
smooth deflection.
Huh?
Very smooth deflection on me.
I
Put me on
think
the
that.
spot. I love it. No, I'm just kidding.
But I think that in all of these places, I think education is really, there's education, and then there's like giving people the bare minimum, right? If someone is living in under the highway, okay, it's probably going to be really hard to get them to
Can you
focus
pardon me for the interruption,
on
please?
school.
We have in the audience a gentleman called Stephen. He's been moderating some of our sessions here. Can we invite Stephen to the stage, please?
Steven, can you hear us? You need to raise your hand so I can bring you to the stage.
You can bring him automatically yourself. You can invite him yourself. Just tap on him.
You have
Just
magnetic.
invited him. Hey, Steven, how are you?
There you go. Yeah, there he is.
I am fantastic. How is everyone in the room doing?
Doing good. Doing
All
good.
right. All right.
Yeah, I wanted to bring up Stephen. Sorry, Stephen, for putting you on the spot here, but obviously you're a board member at the cointelegraph.com. Yeah. And Stephen is actually covering all the topics around the blockchain, etc. And I think you and Iris should have some kind of a discussion, because the element of educating, especially the Black communities, the younger generation, about the trends, how to do the investments, etc. Yes, you can have some kind of an investor that maybe or may not have sort of a biased views on certain things, whereas the media companies that Stephen runs, they will have more of an unbiased view and give them a broader things. I don't know what you think, Stephen.
This is probably not the time to network, but I heard that you were educating a lot of, the youth, a lot of folks in general. That's when I came into the room. And I'd like to connect with you offline and see what tools I can provide that would accelerate that. And whatever we have in our arsenal that can help provide financial literacy and more educational tools, that'd be absolutely fantastic to connect with you and see what I can pull out of the arsenal and provide gratis, of course.
I would love that.
Absolutely. What's interesting is we were speaking with Decentraland earlier, and and it was an interesting point they made was that anyone can make basically Decentraland. It's open source. Oh shit.
Hello.
I hope it didn't break his phone, because this is something I would say if I break my phone. But no, yeah, I think Stephen would be a great guy to kind of keep in contact. I've got a media background, so I certainly feel when the right intelligence is provided, it just makes your mission a lot easier. I think doing it on your own, you're probably finding it quite hard, and if you start dealing with the bureaucrats. But there was a startup. I think it was back in New York. Was it called New Black Wall Street LLC? Have you heard of them?
Is that the one by Hill Harper?
I don't remember. Do you know what? I just don't remember. I just remember reading something about it where they even were doing some kind of NFT sale, and then 25% was going towards funding, the educational part in a specific district. Can't remember now. I need to look it up.
I had not heard of that.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we have to wrap it up slowly because we are, sorry for keeping you longer, Iris.
It's okay.
We're meant to do it for half an hour, and so thank you, everyone. I love the intense end of the conversation, and thank you, everyone, for being there. Thank you, Iris, for a wonderful talk and a lot of thought-provoking stuff.
Thank you for having me. It was my pleasure, and thank you, Sean, for your comments.
No worries. Let's stay in touch. Let it not be goodbye. We'll see you soon. Yeah, kind of a thing. Now you're the member of the NFT club. You'll be seeing all the different sessions. So certainly invite the guys. There's a lot of intelligence out there, and it's free, instant content, which I think will be valuable to everyone in your network. Have a good day, and lovely to meet you.
Thank you. Same to you. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.